we got to shout out the Montreal Canadiens.
Woo!
Because, we're pretty negative about them sometimes. I'm definitely more negative towards the Habs than you are. I'll admit that. And
because I'm closer. I'm closer to La Belle Provence, Bruno. They can actually find me and hunt me down.
That's true. They're going to have a
down
tougher
the highway
time finding me in Toronto. But honestly, man, this team has surprised the hell out of me because I thought they'd be in the running to finish last in the NHL. And I will say this, they have had a pretty soft schedule so far. So I think there are going to be some losses coming up. I don't think they're going to finish dead last in the league like I thought that they could be in play for before the season. But man, oh man, this team has been pretty solid under Marty St. Louis. Suzuki and Caulfield are looking fantastic. They're actually getting pretty solid goaltending. I don't think anyone would have ever said that with Carey Price not playing. But Lepore, man, right now, when you look at the standings, the wild card standings, the Montreal Canadiens are currently 3 points out of a playoff spot. Do you think that this team can actually make the playoffs this season?
Make it. Ooh, before I even get going, everyone, Habs fans, comment down below. I wouldn't bet on it. But that doesn't mean that I'm full of compliments for the Montreal Canadiens. I think what the Habs season is showing us is that as we evolve in hockey, and when I say that, I'm referring to players and styles, the gaps between talent aren't that big. I mean, you obviously have the superstars at the top, the McDavids, the Draisaitl's, the McKinnons, the Crosbys, those guys who are just better than everyone. But I think there's a really large, meaty part of the curve as far as talent goes. So people may flip out at this, but it's almost as if your lineup isn't as important as it used to be. You of course want the star players at the top, and the Canadiens have them with Suzuki and Caulfield. But what I'm getting at is, I think now more than ever, there's a huge importance on coaching, a system, and having sort of the right players in the right positions rather than just like a team of good players. And I think Marty St. Louis has done that. Because when you watch them, they're always kind of exciting to watch. They move, like I said, they're getting goaltending. Their D looks good. Like, they have these young kids who are snapping the puck around, confident. Again, they're relying on Suzuki and Caulfield, who are producing. So I just think Marty St. Louis has done an unbelievable job. Like we always say, like, to win the Jack Adams, you either have to be a team that makes the playoffs that was supposed to be bad, or a team at the top of the standings that was maybe supposed to be average. Like, if the Habs get in the playoffs, Marty St. Louis is probably winning the Jack Adams. So I think he's done an excellent job. I think the team is built nicely. I mean, they have some work to do. There's also the matter, too, with regard to them actually making the playoffs. And again, Habs fans, comment down below what you think of this one and which players you're thinking of. They'll try to unload, I think, at the end of the year, which will make them weaker. I think there's a lot of guys who they would let go. There's rumors about Josh Anderson to Calgary, I believe. And the way the Habs are currently built, and I think what they're striving for, if they could get rid of Josh Anderson, I think they would. It's going to get to a point with Gallagher where it's going to be sad because he's been great for the Montreal Canadiens organization, but both sides are going to have to move on. So I'm not saying that would happen this year, but I'm just saying, like, I think they could do some things later in the season that could weaken their lineup, make those moves that hurt you now but are beneficial to you long term when they want to be ultra competitive. So yes or no answer. No, I don't think the Montreal Canadiens are going to make the playoffs, but a lot of compliments to Les Habitants. They're a fun team to watch. They score goals. They seem fundamentally sound. I mean, their underlying numbers are lower than where they are in the standings, but they're not brutal. They're not like at the bottom of the league, and they're somehow finding ways to win games. So positives for Montreal. It's one of those seasons, and I told a buddy of mine who's a Habs fan at the start of the season, this is the perfect time of fandom. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, zero expectations. Zero. They do well. Yippee. They do poorly. Bedard. Shot at Bedard. So as long as like the kids were scoring and they were fun to watch and exciting, who cares?
Yeah, it's a win-win situation.
100%. 100%. It's been a while. Like, seriously, imagine being able to watch your team. And I always say the Leafs had only one season at the Matthews rookie year where you could just sit down and watch. And like, I don't say don't care, but like, yeah, you just watch. If they win, great. If it's good for their confidence. If they lose, we're trying to tank anyway. So again, Montreal is in that boat, and that's not a hot take. I think everybody would agree with me on that. So good on them. Good on them for entertaining their fans. Good on them for being competitive. And yeah, Marty St. Louis, I think he's figured it out, like I said, because I think he's built something there, or implemented something, I should say, that looks nice.
Lepore, I don't think I've ever had more fun watching the Leafs than in Matthews, Marner, and Nylander's rookie season.
It was the best. Yeah.
They made the playoffs when no one thought that the Leafs would take that leap. Like, it was insane to see, but there was no expectations. They faced the Capitals in the first round. Everyone expected them to lose, which they did in 6 games. But I believe 3 of those games went to overtime. There were so many. I think there may have been like 4 or 5 1-goal games in that series. It was crazy. Like, it actually could have gone either way. All you did was enjoy it. You enjoyed the play of the young guys, how they were getting better. And you're seeing that right now with the Habs. Now, I do agree with you. I don't think this team's going to make the playoffs this year. When you look at the betting odds, they're still a shade over 14-1 to make the playoffs, even though they're 3 points out. But as you said, they're probably going to unload some guys. I've even seen Joel Edmondson's name getting thrown around on social media.
They're saying Edmonton for a first round pick. Maybe a lot of people were flipping out at that payment for him, but
yeah, so they could unload Edmondson, Josh Anderson. Who knows about Gallagher? I mean, I don't know who's going to touch Gallagher's contract. The guy's on the books for another 4 years after this year at $6.5 million. Awesome. But I'm sure Montreal would love to trade him if they could. That can only be beneficial for their rebuild. So, yeah, I think the Habs are in a good spot right now. And you said it, man. St. Louis is doing a good job, because if you compare this team to 2 other Canadian teams, like look at Ottawa. If you ask 100 hockey fans, they would all say that Ottawa has a more talented roster than the Montreal Canadiens. If you asked 100 hockey fans, they'd all say that the Edmonton Oilers have a more talented roster than the Montreal Canadiens. But if you look at the standings right now, the Habs and Oilers have the exact same points percentage, and the Habs are ahead of Ottawa right now in the standings. If you just look at pure points percentage, right now the Montreal Canadiens are sitting around like 18th, 19th in the NHL. Okay. That's pretty darn good, considering that there was a lot of people, including me, who thought that this team was in play for finishing dead last and having a shot at Connor Bedard, which they could still very much have a decent chance at Connor Bedard once the schedule toughens up a little bit. But you got to give credit to this team, man. They have exceeded expectations across the board.
Yeah, 100%. Again, props to the Habs, man. Props to the Habs.